I'm gonna bet you have a phrase stuck in your head right now that you didn't invent. Side hustle, brain rot, glass ceiling, quiet quitting, imposter syndrome, doom scrolling. Here's the thing, you didn't make any of those up. A marketer did, or a journalist, or somebody on Twitter who got lucky one time with a catchy phrase. But every one of those phrases is now sitting rent-free in your brain and in mine. For me, the phrase that lives rent-free in my head is muscle confusion. I've been carrying those two words around for 10 years, and to tell you why they matter and how you can build phrases that do the same thing for your audience, I'm gonna take you back to a tiny living room floor in 2016. So picture this, I'm a dad, I've got 6 kids, I've got a tiny living room floor, I got this secondhand yoga mat, and I got this exercise program that I couldn't even afford, so I had to pirate this DVD. And the name of the program is P90X, and I'm watching it buffer on my monitor. There's like 6 ripped guys, they're screaming, "Bring it," in t-shirts. It was everywhere. And the thing is, it actually worked. And the US military picked it up. And there's even a story about Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House of the United States, who would not shut up about P90X.
It's a fantastic workout. I've got about a dozen. Bart Stupek and I lead it every morning. There's about a dozen of us that do it. Sometimes
he brought it into the congressional gym. There's a whole generation of guys who got in shape on that program. Now, let's talk about Tony Horton, the guy on the screen. When you watch a P90X infomercial, you assume the man teaching you must be an expert, right? A doctor, scientist, Olympic athlete, and that's what your brain fills in. Thing is, he is none of those things. Tony Horton grew up in Connecticut. As a kid, he called himself a 98-pound weakling. He went to college at the University of Rhode Island. And wanna guess his major? His major was theater. After college, he moved to LA in 1980 to become an actor. And he didn't make it as an actor. He did some improv, he did some commercials, and at one point, the man who would become the face of fitness in America started an infomercial wearing clothes he probably regrets. Because he sucked at acting, or at least getting a job as an actor, in order to pay the bills, he started doing personal training in someone else's gym. His rate was $20 a session, and slowly he picked up some celebrity clients. He had Bruce Springsteen, Tom Petty, Billy Idol. He was good at it, but here's what I want you to notice. By the time Tony Horton made P90X, he had spent more than 20 years learning how to perform. 20 years of standing in front of people. 20 years of figuring out how to land a line. Tony Horton was a communicator first and a trainer second, and that's the entire reason this video exists. Here's what I learned later, years later, after I'd done the program, after I told 100 people about muscle confusion, after I repeated the line so many times, I forgot it didn't even come from me. Muscle confusion is not real. I'm serious, go look it up. So here's the way Tony Horton sells it. Your muscles get confused, so then they have to adapt so that you don't plateau. But that is not a scientific principle, it's just marketing talk. The actual principle, it's been around since the 70s and it's in every exercise science textbook. It's called SAID, S-A-I-D, Specific Adaptation to Imposed Demands. Catchy, right? No, it's not catchy at all. Of course not. So sit with this for a second. Tony Horton did not invent a new way of working out. He took an old boring textbook idea from the 70s, one that was in textbooks while Steve Jobs was building his very first Apple computer in his garage. That's how old it is. And he just gave it a fancy name. 2 words, muscle confusion. That's it. That was the product. The workouts? Sure, they're good. They're not magic. They're just solid. It's the same kind of stuff you could get from any decent trainer. But those 2 words, they built a $200 million empire. So no harm, no foul? Well, I'm Exhibit A. I finished P90X twice, and I got in really good shape. But here's what's wild. 10 years later, I cannot tell you a single exercise from that program, not one. I couldn't name the moves if you paid me, but those 2 words, I can still hear Tony Horton say them in my head right now. Muscle confusion. Same voice, same pause between the words, 10 years later. The workouts didn't stick, but the name muscle confusion, it did. And that's not an accident. That's the whole game. Hey, do you remember those phrases I rattled off right at the beginning of this? Side hustle, brain rot, glass ceiling, quiet quitting, imposter syndrome. Every single one of those is the same trick Tony Horton pulled. 2 words. One that you felt your whole life and the other that doesn't actually belong. But once you hear them together, you know exactly what they mean. You don't need a definition. Imposter syndrome. So imposter sounds like a movie villain, right? And syndrome sounds like a doctor's word. But you stick these together and now you have a name for that thing you've been feeling at work for 10 years and you couldn't quite put your finger on it. Same with growth hacking, atomic habits, doom scrolling. Every single one of these is the same trick. 2 words from worlds that don't normally meet, but you smash them together. And here's the part that matters. None of these phrases describe new ideas. People have been quitting their jobs slowly for 100 years. People have been faking it at work since work was invented. The scroll has been doomed for over a decade. These are not new ideas. These are old ideas with new names, and the names are why we remember them. So if you're a coach or you sell something to anyone, pay close attention to what comes next, because once you understand the formula, you can actually use it. Let me map out for you what this looks like. First of all, we have here E and T. I call this the ET formula because this is extremely familiar. Something that you want to think that people use this word all the time. It might be something they have in the garage or in their closet, something that they see every single day. But the other thing is it's got to be totally unrelated to the actual thing you're talking about. Muscle confusion. Confusion has nothing to do with workouts, right? But there's actually a third thing that I thought of recently, which actually upgrades this quite a bit. And I want to show you the third element that I only recently came across, and that is going to be another E for emotionally charged. So emotionally charged to me, it means that you have a strong feeling about it. It's either going to be negative or positive, not neutral. So over here is a word that your audience already knows cold. Side, hustle, brain, rot, glass. They've heard these 10,000 times and the brain skips a dictionary on contact. So the brain doesn't have to work. Circle 2 is unrelated. The two halves of the phrase that come from worlds that don't normally touch. Muscles live in the gym. Confusion lives in the head. They're not supposed to meet. The collision is what creates the surprise. And this is the one most people miss. Circle 3 is charged, emotionally charged. The word you put right here is gotta make you take a side before you've had a chance to really think about it, like a knee-jerk reaction. You either want it or you don't. It pulls you in or it pushes you away. There is no neutral. Watch what I mean. Brain rot. Did you flinch when I said rot? You should have. Rot is one of the most negative words in the English language, and your brain wants to back away from it. That reaction, that's circle number 3 firing inside your brain. And right here in the middle where all 3 circles meet, that's where the phrases live that you can't get out of your head. Familiar, unrelated, emotionally charged. And here's the kicker. Tony Horton came close. He hit 2 out of the 3. Muscle confusion is familiar, it's cross-domain, but confusion, you don't really feel anything when you hear it. It's mildly uncomfortable at most. There's no flinch, there's no charge. Nobody talks about muscle confusion the way they talk about brain rot. The phrases that change the language, they hit all 3. When I say language, it means day-to-day language that people say all the time. So when you name your offer, your method, your framework, don't stop at clever. Don't stop at surprising. Keep going until the second word makes someone feel something. That's the formula. Now look, I've used this formula for years. I've built businesses and I even sold them for multiple 7 figures. And I'm using it right now to run a 7-figure content agency. And every win in every business I've ever came across came back to the same thing. Not the technique, not the names, the phrases prospects would be repeating back to me 3 weeks after the call. The lessons that stuck in my coaching clients' heads when other coaches didn't. This formula is a thread running through everything I've built. It's why my programs land. It's why my modules stick. It's why people remember the things I say, which is exactly what I was thinking about when I got on a bus in Cabo about 1 year ago. And I got sat next to a guy who runs his own coaching business, and he was kind of venting. He'd been trying for months to get his clients and his team to follow a specific communication protocol inside of his company. And he'd explained it, he'd built diagrams, he'd shared case studies, but nothing was landing. They kept communicating the old way. So he asked me, what would you do? And I said, try this. On your next call, tell them this. Not following the communication protocol is like being on a crappy hotel Wi-Fi when you're trying to call your kids back at home. You know that feeling. You can see them, but it's blocky, it's jerky, you miss every other word, and they look like a robot, and you look like a robot to them, and you get half a sentence in, and you lose the next one. Now, with the protocol, that's an Ethernet cable jacked straight into the wall. Crystal clear picture, 1080p, every one of your word lands, and your kids look like kids. They laugh and they hear every single word. So a week later, after we got home from Cabo, this guy texts me and he says that it landed super well. Not only did it land, his team got it and they started the protocol that week. And the other thing he told me that he was now using the analogies like that every single time in his own content on YouTube and on Instagram. One great analogy changed how an entire coaching business communicated with their clients and with the world. Now, look at what just happened. Crappy hotel Wi-Fi. Extremely familiar for anyone who's traveled, right? Every single person watching this video, including you, has been there. Family Zoom calls, also extremely familiar. But welding that into a corporate communication protocol, those are unrelated things. Those two worlds don't talk to each other in real life, not normally. Operations people don't think about hotel Wi-Fi when they design protocols, and that's why the bridge between them was unforgettable. Every single person watching this video, including you, has been there. Family Zoom calls, also extremely familiar, but welding that into a corporate communication protocol, those are unrelated things. Those two worlds don't talk to each other in real life, not normally. Operations people don't think about hotel Wi-Fi when they design protocols, and that's why the bridge between them was unforgettable. It's the same move I made when I decided to rebrand my coaching business from Video Marketing Machine to The Chosen Coach. Chosen is one of those emotionally familiar words a human knows. Every person watching this video has a memory of being chosen for a team, for a job, for a date, and a memory also of not being chosen. That word lives in your gut. Coach is the unrelated category. You slam those together, and now you have an instant emotional brand. That's the whole game. I did the same thing Tony Horton did in his garage 40 years ago. I just did it on purpose. So here's the takeaway. Tony Horton didn't sell a workout, he sold a name. The product was the language, the workouts were the delivery system. So if you're a coach right now, sitting on a great offer that nobody is paying attention to, much less buying, your problem is probably not the offer. Your problem is that nobody can repeat what you do back to themselves. Nobody is sitting in their car on their way home from work hearing your 2 words on a loop the way I still hear muscle confusion. Fix that with this formula and you'll never have to chase a client again. So tell me one thing, and I mean it. Comment down below, what's the muscle confusion of your business? Drop it in the comments. I'll read every single one. And I'll tell you straight up if I think that you've got it or if you just made something that sounds clever using ChatGPT or whatever. Go ahead. I'll see you in the comments.